Good morning, everyone. Welcome to 100% Optical Online. Today, we are on day two at the online event, and I would like to remind you today's session is all about business. And we are going to welcome Dean from Retail Experience Design about increasing practice revenue with effective retail design. Before we start the session, I would like to remind you that if you missed the previous sessions or yesterday's sessions, you can catch them on demand from the Swapcard platform. Just to remind you that there are non-CET sessions. And today is also the last day for our exhibitor and visitor competition. For those who connect with suppliers and arrange the most meetings, you have a chance to win £50 worth of Amazon gift cards. All you need to do is visit our sponsors and exhibitors page, arrange your meetings, or chat to the exhibitors directly to be in a chance to win £50 worth of Amazon gift cards. So without further ado, I'm going to leave the stage to Dean. Hi, Dean.
Hello there. Thank you for that. I'm Dean Moore. Say again, sorry.
It's all with you now.
Oh, good. Thank you. Nice, smooth transition there. I'm Dean Moore, creative director and founder of Retail Experience Design. Based on a recent number of successful projects that we've delivered in the optical market, the organisers of 100% Optical have asked us to pull together a short 30 to 40 minute presentation on how effective retail can make for a more successful space and increase profits. My goal today isn't to try and baffle you with design science and kind of design spiel and talk. What I'm hoping to try and achieve is to enable you to take away some snippets of information that we go through today, with the possibility that you can even apply it within your own business and in your own space, but certainly to allow you to go away and think about how potentially you could get that to work within your business. So before we move on, I think it would be a good idea and a nice idea for those that haven't heard of us or don't know too much about Retail Experience Design to understand a little bit more about me, about the team and what we do. I'm a retail designer with 20 years plus experience. I've worked for a number of global design agencies over the last 20 years, working on brands such as JD Sports, Apple, Hewlett-Packard, delivering memorable retail projects for a number of bigger clients and bigger brands. Founded Retail Experience probably about 6 years ago. We've grown since that initial period into a team of, in my opinion, really skilled designers with really kind of good level of knowledge in aspects of retail design. For me, one of my main goals with the agency was to enable the ability to work with smaller independents and multiples, providing them with the knowledge and insight that we developed whilst working on bigger businesses and with bigger brands. And it's kind of giving this ability for these smaller businesses that we're now working with to kind of tap into this knowledge base that we've gathered over the years and just transferring the skills, the knowledge, the simple tricks that we'd learned on kind of mainstream retail, but kind of plugging those into a kind of more smaller independent audience that we've begun to work with. So I guess a good question and a good place to start is to explain what retail design is. Retail design isn't shop fitting. I mean, we often get kind of asked, do we do shop fits and come up with a shop fit? And the answer is yes, we can. But the initial part of what we do and our specialism is about design. It's about retail design. The end goal is the shop fit, but until there's various processes that we need to go through to get us to that place. So, we need to look at the space, we need to look at the layout, we need to look at the brand, we need to look at the fixtures and fittings, right through to the lighting, right through to the customers, understanding the customers. All of these facets kind of need to fuse together to allow us to understand where the end goal is. Without kind of going through that process, my concern always is with clients that you should never embark on a shop fit until you've answered the questions about the business and you understand completely about what we're trying to do. And I think from our end, what we always try and do with every single client is treat it individually. When we first started working in the optical industry 10, 15 years ago, every single optician's look very, very similar, if not the same. So what we've tried to do is to really try and scratch the surface with all of our clients and give them this individual kind of aspirational look to their practice. This individual creation of a brand allows them therefore to connect to their customer base, which ultimately brings in more kind of clients. It brings, you know, really good, strong values, strong word of mouth marketing, which all end up to kind of increase profits and the bottom level, which is what it's all about. Who we do it for? We do it for everybody in terms of design. I'm talking about we work with independents, we work with multiples, we work in all areas of retail design. As I said, you know, we don't just work in optics. For us to maintain current, we need to work across the whole of retail. So, you know, we work from, you know, opticians right through to hair salons, right through to therapy centres, to footwear, jewellery and fashion. Our design process covers everything that's needed to deliver a successful store design. So yeah, we work with independents and multiples across the whole sphere of retail. And as I said, you know, the only way that we can maintain this kind of this level of currentness with our clients is to keep an eye on the overall areas of retail. And it's this ability to look at how the retail landscape is changing in different sectors that we can then bring this fresh forward thinking creativity to our clients we work with in optics. A little bit later in the presentation, I'm going to show you some of the projects that we worked on, and it's no accident really that every project that we're involved with is different, and it's not different because we just decide one day to make one practice blue and one practice pink. You know, we've really gone through the correct processes with our clients to enable us to deliver this brand, and then, you know, encapsulate this connection with clients to make the business work. In more recent years, we have been recognised and we've grown as a specialist agency in health wellbeing sectors. This obviously includes optics, audiology, private healthcare clinics, boutique salons, right through to therapy spaces. So I just wanted to drop this slide in, really just, you know, to kind of showcase the fact that, you know, we're coming up to 7 years old now as a business, and I'm really proud of some of the milestones and achievements that we've hit along the way. Specifically with optics, you know, we've picked up some really prestigious design awards ourselves. Our clients that we've worked with have picked up really, you know, prestigious awards for the practices that have been delivered, right through to being asked to do keynote speaking such as this today. And, you know, as I said, I think we're now thought of as one of the leading design agencies in optical design. Just in the UK, we've been asked, you know, outside of the UK to get involved with a number of high profile optical businesses as well, which is all really, really good. Okay, so retail experience design, you know, we focus on these opticians spaces and we try and inject some kind of creativity and some kind of meaning behind what we're trying to achieve. So as I said at the start, you know, all of our projects, they look different, they are different, and it's no accident. You know, what we're trying to do is to create these individual spaces that create connections with clients. So if you look at the top left-hand image, Aston Woods, probably one of the most kind of recognizable spaces that we've been involved with. This location is on Tottenham Court Road, and it was crafted to be a focused practice to attract and sell to customers, tourists, office workers and general shoppers. So the whole layout, the whole delivery and the whole design is geared up to achieve that. On the other side of that, if you look at Blackheath, bottom right hand corner, now Blackheath is one of 4 or 5 opticians in Blackheath. So Blackheath Eye Care, we made the decision with the client, a strategic decision to create a family crafted space. So here we looked at different materials, different finishes. We looked at how the space could be used by the family market, making it feel comfortable to bring children into the space, looking at how we could create the dispensing experience as a kind of more family involved focus, right through to the colors, the finishes, the lighting. Everything in there makes it feel warm and welcoming, and doesn't really ostracize anybody that would want to come into the space. Other recognizable projects we've got in there, we've got Glimpse. I think this was around 5 years old as a project now, but this was all about kind of creating this uber funky, attractive space that customers could really kind of come into and be wowed by the materials and the finishes and like the uber coolness of the whole space. So a really different proposition to Blackheath Eye Care. Other notable projects on there, we've got Judith Day in the centre. Judith Day was a project we're involved with in Cheltenham, and it was a really, really small space. And I think often challenges are thrown up by sizes of practice, but there's always a way to kind of consider the space really carefully and look at how you can get the very best from what we've got to work with. Other projects on there, the last one I'm just going to touch on is going to be Parker and Hammond. So Parker and Hammond, top right side, a really large space. We helped the client here reconfigure the whole of the business from the back end right through to the front end. We looked at their branding, we looked at their identity, and Parker and Hammond were all about the kind of clinical excellence of the practice, and this they wanted to portray throughout their whole DNA as a business. So with this, you can see the faceted blue material that was a kind of specialist fabric that we sourced for the guys. We've introduced really white clinical areas to bounce light. We've included faceted glass. So all the materials, all the facets, the whole way that portrays itself, the space portrays itself, lends itself to the business, and ultimately the clients that the business asks to come into the space. So every optical retailer is different. They all have a shared goal, and that's to win customers, to increase sales, and to gain customer loyalty. To achieve this goal, it starts with good retail design. So in summary, that's kind of where we've just run through. I once had a client say that they couldn't understand why they couldn't sell any of their premium frames, whilst he pointed over to a dark corner where glasses sat on a raw MDF shelf with edges peeling away, and the shelf was unlevel. This is actually a true quote, and it's something that in one guise or another I've come into contact with over the last sort of 5 to 10 years working specifically with the optical market. It's really, really important that the way in which you present yourself, present your products, present your frames, it's an outwardly projection of you, your business, and your brand. And it's so important to get this connection right. And this connection will enable you, therefore, to build the reputation, build the brand, and the end delivery is, the uplift in sales and the uplift in profit, because things are working better for you and you're delivering things in the right way. I just wanted to run through some images now that I've just basically lifted from various websites and various clip art images. Now, what I wanted to try and do is not show you how bad these practices are and how poorly they are. It's just to really try and get us on the same page and align my thoughts about what is done right and is done wrong. And I think this is a fairly good streamlined way of doing that. So the next couple of slides that I'm just firing through now, they all, for me, are very dull, very boring, lifeless, and absolutely defunct of any personality and any individuality. Back at the start, I talked about opticians over the last 10 or maybe 15 years ago. A lot of the opticians all looked very, very similar. These actually are 4 or 5 different opticians. And as you can see with the slides popping up there, they are very similar. I mean, you've got a traditional approach. The traditional approach was always kind of racks and racks of stainless steel rods with, an overabundance of laminate flooring and wood chip. So for argument's sake, if we look at this one, a massive counter, member of staff almost kind of hiding behind the counter. The bulkiness and the size of the counter overtakes the whole practice, and that's a common kind of denominator that I'd witnessed. Then we moved through the next years, and we had to see the introduction of acrylics and LEDs, and all of a sudden the practices kind of departed from this traditional look to what was classified as a modern look. And, you know, in my opinion, it couldn't be any further from modern. All right, we've got some acrylics and some kind of shiny floor. But again, what it's not doing, it's not showing any life signs as to what it's about. You know, is it a fun practice? Is it a family practice? Is it how are we communicating with our customer? I would argue with all of these images that there's no connection whatsoever. And you know, that particular image there, we can just see the dispensing stations just thrown into the middle of the space. And for me, you know, one of the main principles of a good optician's practice is the dispense. The dispense is the point where you can really sell the business. It's you know, it's about this performance, and it's about this kind of experience. Just by whacking 3 or 4 desks in the middle of an open space, it's not going to do anything to promote the business and kind of to enable this engagement and this kind of this ability to sell frames and even upsell. So yeah, it's a good example of a bad way of doing it, if you like. Thankfully, over the last 5 years or so, I've seen a significant shift in the optical retail landscape, and businesses now, they are starting to understand that it's very, very important to carefully consider retail, and you know, ultimately it's a bad thing to just be solely reliant on the clinical aspect of the business, because the retail platform and the retail of projection of the business it is a vital way now for independents to kind of capitalize on that side of things. So a strong retail design strategy is a fundamental component for opticians looking to stand firm in a difficult and competitive market and ultimately win the battle for customer loyalty and sales. So again, just a really kind of quick statement recap on what we've run through there. So what I'm hoping to do in the next couple of slides is to try and give you some snippets of advice to allow you to start thinking about creating your own practice in an individual way, and also to maybe just start to give you the kind of the bare bones of a strategy to allow you to move forward, think about certain things within the practice and how you can possibly look to improve them, and to improve the design, not necessarily without embarking on a kind of complete retail design and overhaul, but maybe just snippets and nuggets of information that you can put to good use. So where to start? Evaluate your business and understand your customer. Now, this is a fairly common process that all design agencies would go through with clients, whether it's designing a logo, designing an interior, you know, looking at a brand. It's about customer identity and about the kind of the end user, if you like. So these images that are just shown on your screen here, these are all kind of snippets of work that we've carried out for clients. So buzzwords, looking at what the business can be associated with, whether it's clinical excellence, whether it's being homely, whether it's an independent service. These words will enable you to start to forge how your business needs to work and how it should project itself. So from those initial kind of strategizing as to, you know, buzzwords, to looking at customers, you know, I appreciate that optics, you know, we've got to service a wide audience, but within the wide audience, always a core or a niche of client that we're looking to try and captivate. So whether it's parents, whether it's affluent mothers, whether it's, you know, shoppers that are in the kind of local high street, that we want to try and get those guys in to sell some of our kind of more premium frames or sunglasses. We can do that by looking at really simple images. You know, what sports do they play? What clothes do they wear? What shops do they go to? What cars they drive? This enables us to really kind of understand what that particular customer is motivated by. Then on the flip side of that, we start to look at images, we start to look at inspiration boards. relevant practices. Doesn't have to be a practice. It could be a footwear shop. It could be a jewelry shop. It could be a baker's shop. We just need to start to see the correlation between the buzzwords, the customers, and the business that we're looking to try and achieve and deliver. So this visual cue of images, a really, really good way that we can start to pull that all together. This isn't just something that's adopted by smaller independents. You know, as I said, we have had quite a lot of involvement with overseas optical businesses that have asked us to come in and help them strategize as well. So very, very common throughout the whole of retail, whether it's a small independent or a massive multiple. It's the identifying of the client, and that is the kickoff to any project. Because if we go through straight to a shop fit, deliver this store that's really glossy, shiny, blingy, looks really opulent, and it's dripping in bronze and brass, but we're not in the right area, our demographic is, you know, isn't an ABC1 demographic. You know, we're kind of looking at an NHS kind of audience, maybe just up from that, then the two aren't going to correlate, and it's going to do very little to help your business. But if we've done this bit right first, then great stone to know we're moving on through the processes, and when we get to our end goal, we can work back and be safe in the knowledge that we've asked the right questions and we've got to the right place. So taking your brand seriously, we are asked, you know, by lots of clients now, and we've built up a really good reputation. We often get phone calls asking us to, you know, do we do shop fits? No, we don't. We're retail designers. Yes, we can have a look at the space. Once we have a look at the space, a lot of the clients kind of say, you know, we're happy with our logo, we're happy with our namesake. But these logos and namesakes are often lifted from clip art, or they're kind of quite, what's the word? Not cheesy, but not sophisticated in their delivery. So a lot of the times when we look at a design of a business, we need to look at the whole package. So we can't just focus on the inside and how that's projecting. We need the brand, we need to look at the logo, we need to look at the identity. So again, a really good exercise that we go through is we look at typefaces, we look at typography, we look at colors, all of these facets fused together, again, to create the correct outward proposition for that business. So as you can see there, a few examples of business cards, letterheads, shop front, signage, just to give you a cross section of ideas there. So moving on to store layout. Store layout is probably something that I could talk about for hours and hours and hours, and I'm not going to kind of put you through that at the moment. We just haven't got the time to do it. So I'm going to try and just run through some really quick ideas on space and how we can get space to work. On screen now, you can just see a very simple space plan that was created for a client. Before we got involved with the space plan, some very common issues were apparent. The counter was really close to the door, so it meant that when a customer came into the space, they didn't walk past the counter. It was almost that the counter was acting as a barrier to the rest of the space. So wherever possible, we always look to position the counters towards the back of the space. If I just move on to some more visual kind of based images, it will help you understand. So certain things, mid-floors are a fantastic way of getting more products out on display. It allows you to get certain products out on display. It also enables for a kind of driver around the space. Because the way generally an optician's is geared up, you'll have left-hand wall as retail, right-hand wall as retail, shop front, counter. So what generally happens is a customer client will walk into the space, they'll make a beeline straight to the counter, and from the counter, they'll go and sit down. And often the seats are just put in the front of the shop. So where we've got space to do it, it's really nice to put in these mid-floors, whether it's a table like shown in this image up here, or whether it's a kind of cube display. What it does, it forces the customers to start the journey in a certain motion. And I think that obviously, if we are pushing customers towards the peripherals of the space, we've got more opportunities to sell product and sell frames. I talked about seating and putting seating in windows. It's not always the best place to put seats, and it's almost like an afterthought. You know, we've designed the space, we've put the counter at the back, we've got some nice kind of displays towards the left hand side and the right hand side with the floor in the middle. We'll stick some seats in the window, but think about how new potential customers might see that. They don't really want to look at the back of people's heads. Equally, people sitting and waiting are a captive audience. I've seen it in a lot of practices where a customer is or a client or patient, however you want to define it, is sitting waiting for an appointment with, whether it's a husband, whether it's mom and dad, and they're just sat looking at a water cooler. These potential clients are primed and ready to sell to. So whether we can start to work in AV technology, small clusters of display, there's so many things we can start to put in front of them to kind of create this kind of the ability to move through the cycle. Just moving on to the next image there. So again, from a space point of view, the way that we would generally adopt the design is to look at how we can integrate dispensing. So from my experience, again, the dispensing is a really vital part of the process. And I've seen it all too often where dispensing desks are just positioned against a retail wall. So what that does, it stops the person having a dispensing experience feel comfortable. They feel like they're being overlooked by people that are peering onto the shelves. And then from the flip side, a customer wanting to browse feels awkward. They don't browse because there's somebody sat right in the middle of that retail wall. So wherever possible, it all comes down to space planning. And if you do the correct kind of counts on product, the correct identifying of size of counter, the correct layout, the correct number of frames out on display, the correct amount of storage, you should be able to pinch back areas of space where we can actually put a standalone space for dispensing. And what it does, it just starts to really map out the area. So we've got defined areas for certain aspects of the business. We've got a nice waiting area where we're looking at a screen or looking at some nice products. We've got a clear right-hand wall where we've got all our kind of expensive brands and frames. We've got a left-hand wall that's got part frames and it's got dispensing. We've got our counter towards the back. We've got our brand that's really present. All these images that I'm showing you now, the client's brand is kind of foremost. So creating a unique and authentic customer experience. The customer experience covers each step through the store, each touch point and each interaction, and it's often made up of many different elements. Optical practices should ask themselves, does their space create a customer experience tailored to their audience? So on that same note, the layout, as we said, it's crucial, and it's this connection with customers, an audience that's so crucial. We worked with Part Vision a year or two ago now, and for Michelle at Part Vision, her brand and her identity, she was really, really on it in terms of she knew what she was about. She knew her client base. We worked with Michelle to look at how we could deliver this environment that really talked and communicated to the ABC1 working professional that visited Michelle's space. So a really, really nice thing that Michelle had done is she looked at images of her clients that she had sold frames to, and obviously were patients of hers, and she created a really nice montage of images that were used throughout the space of customers in their glasses that they bought. And I just think this is such a lovely way of creating a personality. So then just moving on from that, again, back onto the whole kind of idea of space. What I talked about initially was how reception counters or sales counters, or whatever you want to define them, they're a really good way of kind of creating a process through a space. If we put the counter towards the front of the door, it's going to stop people circulating the whole space. What we should be doing when we present the counter as well is we should be really proud of our brand and who we are, and we should flag up that that's the way that we want the customers to circulate the space. We want the customers to drive towards the counter to start this kind of whole process of the customer journey. Customer journey, I touched on early on about the importance of the dispense, and I still think it is a massive, massive part of the optical journey and selling. And I think I've seen it so many times that it's been such a letdown on the process. Even if the frames are presented nicely and we've got a really kind of warm and welcoming team, we've got some fantastic brands on show, then we take the customer to a really old kind of almost like, and it's just the whole process then just unfolds, and it's kind of broken down. With Michelle for Part Vision, and you know, for any client that we work with, we always try and create this area as a really kind of experience led. So here you can see the opulence of the light fittings, you can see the wallpaper. There is actually drawers and cupboards for this whole area, but what we've done, we've been mindful to keep them all enclosed and pushed away and neat and tidy. Customers don't want to see reams of paper and reams of drawers and shelves and cupboards. They just want a really, really nice, clean area where they can sit down, feel special, and the client can deliver them, or our clients can then deliver their patients this really, really fantastic experience for them to take on. So here, we'd created this structure, and the whole idea with this structure was it feels like the customer or the patient or the client can walk into this zone, and it's a separate zone. They're now not on the sales spot, they're in this really relaxed, refined, well-presented space. And again, I'm kind of backing on about this, but it's all about the layout, space, the way the space is used. And it's so important that we get this layout right, because if we do, it ticks all the boxes. You know, the customers walk through the door, they've gone to the counter, the brand is represented at the counter, they've sat in these seats that aren't in the window, they're actually looking at some really nice frames and brands. We've gone through to the clinical areas, we've come out, and then we're hit with this fantastic experience of dispensing. So moving on, because I know kind of time's against me, and I did say I could talk about that for hours, but going to have to move on just to touch on merchandising and displays. So in my opinion, my thoughts have always been that frame bars really don't do a vast amount to improve the perception of a pair of frames. All too often I've visited practices where, you know, there's a kind of main display wall, and there's hundreds, or what feels like hundreds and hundreds of frames just thrown onto this wall, and there's about 1 million different rods and bars, and the lighting's really poor, and the client that I'm visiting has sort of looked at me and said, look, you know, I just don't understand why I can't sell these frames. You know, I've got these lovely brands, they're not selling. It goes back to that statement about the MDF shelf that was falling off the wall, and it's the same position. If a product doesn't have the ability to communicate and talk to the person shopping, then how would you expect to sell it? I mean, for me, there's a very similar kind of thought process. If I'm going into a trainer shop or a shoe shop, I don't necessarily want 1 million trainers looking at me all at once, all communicating, all shouting out in different ways. Products have to have the ability to sit on their own, and the ability to capture your aspirations. So I understand that we need to get certain quantities out and certain frames out for certain audiences that we're trying to kind of sell to, but we can do it in so many different ways. We don't have to bang rod upon rod upon rod on the wall. You know, we can look at visual merchandising areas. So we can have an area of heavier display on shelves, or kind of different mechanisms. But then we can have a really nice area where, you know, we're proud of a certain brand that we're stocking and carrying. So we use some brand cards. We create a really nice visual merchandising queue. We've started to introduce in some of these photos audio visual, and audio visual is a really important part of merchandising, but it has to be done as a part of a kind of wider strategy. You can't just throw up a couple of audio visual screens and expect this to solve all the problems. It's about all the pieces working together, and I'm kind of keep banging on about that, but it is so important. There's so many variants in a retail space, and they have to work together to make the end product or the end sell. And it's these facets all fusing and working together that will affect and increase the bottom line. I mean, I spoke about Michelle's dispensing space earlier on, and it's no accident that, you know, by us kind of going through the right procedures, the right kind of processes, that Michelle's average dispensing now is up fairly kind of say dramatically, but it's way up from where it was before we were involved with the project. So I think all of the fundamentals of design need to be addressed, and the fixtures and fittings element of it and the merchandising is a fairly key way of doing that. And I think another nice thing with our displays, and something I've seen, is all too often you'll have a white wall and you'll have frames or rods or shelves with the frames in front of a white wall. It just doesn't have any depth to it. It doesn't have an emotive kind of feeling for us to kind of want to pick up the frames. So a really nice way of creating this depth and kind of this kind of connection with a particular frame is to adopt feature finishes. You know, we can use wallpaper, we can use kind of 3D products, we can use sculpted panels. There's so many different materials available to us now as designers that we can create some lovely backdrops to our frames. So this image that's on screen now is of Glimpse, and what we did for the guys at Glimpse is we sourced it was basically a concrete panel. We applied the concrete panel in sections to what originally was just a kind of plasterboard wall, and then we adopted the retail display units with this LED white wash light. So it just creates a really dramatic effect. So all of a sudden, instead of a pair of frames sitting on a drub white wall or magnolia wall, the frames are sitting in front of this like cracked concrete, and it's got this kind of disturbance, this noise to it. So all of a sudden the frames, they look raw, they look edgy, they do what we want them to do. You know, they're not just kind of thrown on a shelf, sitting random kind of off a magnolia backdrop. And I think this is a really nice way of me explaining what this kind of whole process does if it's done in the right way. You know, Glimpse was all about the rawness, about the edginess, about captivating people that were on a busy kind of route to the train station and thoroughfare. All of a sudden, by this integration of materials and finishes and the way the whole store is presented, it enables the connection of the customers. And, you know, again, it's the end goal, which is increasing profits and increasing sales. I know that we're running out of time.
Yes, Dean, if we can wrap it up very quickly, if that's okay.
Yeah, no problem. So in terms of frontage and signage, just very quickly, again, a very important part of the process. It is the touch point to your business. It's the beacon for your brand. We always need to look at how we're projecting this image. So whether it's full glass shop fronts, whether it's illuminated signage, whether it's projecting signage, whether it's audio visual in the windows, whether it's large format graphics, you know, there's so many different ways that we can make an attractive shop front, but it is a really kind of important part of the process. And I don't believe I've got much time to go through that. So I am going to whiz through to the end slide just to keep everybody on track. So just as a recap, by creating an authentic customer experience, opticians will have the foundation to create an honest and genuine relationship with patients and customers that differentiates from competitors. A strong identity can play a fundamental role in making patients visit more often, stay longer, and buy more. The right environment improves customer-patient perception of quality of products and services. And strategic retail design will allow patients and customers to build relationships, and this will drive store loyalty. So all of these points, all of these fundamentals will help that increase of bottom line profit if they're done in a certain way and to a certain level. And that, I believe, is all I've got time for. So.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Dean. Unfortunately, we ran out of questions. We've got a number of questions here. I suggest our audience either directly contact Dean to get the answers for those questions, or Dean, you can also will be able to see the questions on the panel, and you can also contact the attendees. There are some specific questions and very good questions actually there. So I want to remind the next session starts literally in 5 minutes. Thank you very much, Dean. And just remind everyone, Dean is here all day. You can contact the retail experience design team as well as Dean directly. Thank you very much all.
Thank you.